In World of Warcraft, characters from Warcraft 3 show up again and again and again, but for some reason, Malfurion is oddly missing for a large majority of World of Warcraft's history.
I could use a nap.
The reason for this is probably because he is just so incredibly overpowered. So let's go through the history of this character and see how Malfurion Stormrage broke the power scale for Warcraft. Malfurion is the first mortal druid ever.
We shall soon stand in the presence of the Lord of the Forest. Greetings, friend.
Malfurion will become the first druid. Receive my blessing, dedicated student.
Over 10,000 years ago, Malfurion learned to harness the power of nature from the demigod Cenarius. Malfurion was his most devoted disciple and became the first mortal druid on Azeroth. He grew up alongside his twin brother Illidan and Tyrande Whisperwind. Malfurion and Tyrande would eventually fall in love, much to the disappointment of the edgy, love-struck Illidan. Malfurion is the total foil to Illidan. Instead of being a brooding edgelord, he's a goody-two-shoes, nature-loving himbo who is absolutely devoted to Tyrande and will do anything to protect her, as we'll see later in the video. So all of Malfurion's early lore is from the trilogy of books called the War of the Ancients, an iconic trilogy that is filled with some corny, high-fantasy Warcraft schlock, and I mean that in the best way possible. This war is the most important war in all of Azeroth's history, where the aristocratic, magic-loving highborn elves, led by Queen Azshara, make a deal with Sargeras and use the Well of Eternity, an incredibly powerful font of power, to summon the Burning Legion, and eventually Sargeras himself to Azeroth. Malfurion was one of the first to suspect the nefarious plans of Queen Azshara, and played a key role in the war. Now keep in mind, Malfurion is still a student in the art of druidism at the time, but let's run through some of his accomplishments.
May Elune grant us strength. Gather, my friends, and be healed!
Throughout this trilogy, he does your usual stuff like healing people with his nature powers and blowing demons away with a gust of wind. But let's see here, he's also doing things like summoning earthquakes, pits of quicksand, commanding worms to destabilize the ground, looking through the eyes of beetles, calling down bolts of lightning, shooting barbed thorns at a giant worm.
Well, this is a thorny situation. Get it? Thorny? It's because I'm a druid. I am humorous.
And let's see, what else? He makes seeds rapidly grow in the bellies of fellbats and then they explode. And he makes a leaf sword and then he decapitates a satyr.
Yes, I feel stronger.
Basically anything even remotely related to nature, he can do to an incredible degree. Another thing Malfurion can do is use his druidic powers to enter the Emerald Dream and turn into like a ghost. And he uses this skill to sneak into a tower which contained a portal, summoning a huge swath of demons. The orchestrator of the summoning was Lord Xavius, second in command to Queen Azshara, who carved out his eyes and replaced them with magical ones to detect all types of magic.
Greetings, friend.
No! He catches Malfurion and stuffs his soul into a crystal. The important thing that you need to know about Malfurion is that as a druid, his power is not some innate thing contained within him. He's more of a conduit for nature magic to manifest. And Elune, or whoever god it is, just loves Malfurion. In fact, there's a quote later in the story that says, Kalimdor continued to feed him, to give him all it could. It entrusted Malfurion with its future, its fate. He was its guardian now, more than Cenarius, Malorn, or even the dragons. It was up to him and him alone. So in his crystal prison, Malfurion thinks really, really hard about grass And he also has this spiritual telepathic friendship connection with Tyrande and a bunch of his other friends for some reason, and they give him words of encouragement, and he breaks free from the prison.
Fear not, I have returned.
And then he spams lightning bolts at Xavius. Next, Hakar the Houndmaster shows up. This is a commander of the Burning Legion and summoner of fell hounds who devour magic. During the scene, Hakar kills dozens of Night Elf Sentinels and almost even kills Tyrande.
Tyrande!
And then he just hits him with the classic lightning spam. Next, a wild god is killed by Archimonde, one of the main leaders of the Burning Legion. But instead of spamming lightning, Malfurion casts Entangling Roots on him, and is just so prickly and uncomfortable that Archimonde teleports away. Next, Xavius is back. This time, he's been resurrected by Sargeras into a satyr, and he's captured Tyrande.
Our game is at an end. Behold your dear High Priestess.
Tyrande!
But he's shot by an arrow, and Malfurion uses his druid powers to expand the wood from the shaft and turn Xavius into a tree.
May the wilds claim you, pathetic wretch.
Now, despite Xavius being dead, his satyr goons kidnap Tyrande and take her through a portal. And Malfurion gets so sad that his beloved girlfriend is gone that he starts crying. And without even knowing it, his sad emotions start an intense rainstorm that threatens to wash away the entire Night Elven army in the area. And through his sadness, he doesn't even realize he's doing this. This scene is utterly ridiculous, so I narrated the whole excerpt from the book, and you can listen to it right now by becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon. Malfurion does some other amazing feats of power, and the war ends with him using a powerful artifact called the Demon Soul to destroy the Well of Eternity, ending the demonic invasion, and sundering the world. Now let me remind you, Malfurion did all of this as a student of Druidism.
My brother is such a tree hugger.
After the war, Illidan fills some vials with the liquid from the Well of Eternity to make a new well, so he can continue to feed off of the arcane power, despite it playing a major role in the previous war and the destruction of the world.
No!
So Illidan doing this enrages Malfurion. Who does Illidan think he is? Only he can be the brother with overpowered abilities, beloved by all, and with a super hot girlfriend. So Illidan is in prison for his crimes. The World Tree of Nordrassil was grown around this new well to protect and contain its energies. And despite Illidan being punished for creating this new well, the World Tree would be blessed by the dragon aspects and gift the Night Elves immortality.
I could use a nap.
Malfurion then falls asleep for 10,000 years. And while he's sleeping, his spirit is in the Emerald Dream, meditating on the concepts of nature and grass. But in the real world, he is fast asleep, which brings up so many questions. Does he need to eat or drink while he's sleeping for 10,000 years? Does he poop? Can you shake him awake? If not, does that mean that you can kind of just ragdoll Malfurion's body around and he'll remain fast asleep? All questions to ponder, but during Warcraft 3, he's finally awoken.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
This time with some new animalistic transformations.
I shall join you in battle.
History seems to repeat itself as during Warcraft 3, the Burning Legion invades once again. And once again, Malfurion kicks a whole lot of ass. Now in Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, Malfurion is just called Furion. And I believe he was called this at certain points in the Well of Eternity trilogy as well. The thing is, Furion is literally just the name of a character in Warhammer Fantasy. Later on, he would only be referred to as Malfurion. This is either because they just preferred the name Malfurion, or they didn't want to get sued by Games Workshop. And in the Warcraft 3 expansion, The Frozen Throne, he's only referred to as Malfurion. And since this is a story told within Warcraft 3 and not a book series, Malfurion's feats of strength aren't nearly as wacky, but still just as strong. And Malfurion is in the spotlight once again when the war ends with him using the Horn of Cenarius to summon thousands of wisps and use the power contained within the World Tree of Nordrassil to blow up Archimonde. The consequences of which is that the Night Elves lose their immortality. Despite the immense loss, Malfurion was perfectly fine with not being immortal. He believed the Kaldari had become jaded and complacent. By not being immortal, they would be forced to adapt to this changing world, just like they had after the Sundering. But some druids disagreed with Malfurion's conclusions and desperately scrambled to plant a new world tree so they could re-establish their immortality. Fandral Staghelm was one of these desperate druids who recklessly planted the World Tree of Andrassil, which would later breach an old god prison, which would then lead to the Emerald Nightmare being created. But more on that later. Malfurion then falls back asleep. Fandral Staghelm was furious that Malfurion refused to plant any more world trees, so he made sure the Archdruids stayed asleep and then planted the new World Tree of Teldrassil. World of Warcraft comes out, he's asleep. The Burning Crusade comes out, he's asleep. Wrath of the Lich King comes out, he is still asleep. When Malfurion finally wakes up, it's explained in the Stormrage Book, a book set between the end of Wrath of the Lich King and the start of Cataclysm. In this book, it's revealed that Xavius is still alive and is still a tree. As a tree, with help from N'Zoth, he turned parts of the Emerald Dream into the corrupted Emerald Nightmare.
I am Lord of the Nightmare! I have been shaped by the powers of the old gods! Tremble before me!
Papa, help me! The Archdruid of Darnassus, Fandral Staghelm, is pushed further into his insanity by Xavius, who appears before him as his dead son, and convinces him to help the Nightmare Lord's evil schemes. This includes attaching a corrupted branch to the World Tree of Teldrassil and spreading the Emerald Nightmare so not only Malfurion, but all sleeping druids are stuck in the dream. To further his plan, he kept Malfurion's physical body weakened by using a herb called Morrograin. And one of my favorite lore details in Warcraft is that you, the player character, helped gather this herb back in Classic WoW, and gave it to Fandral Staghelm. You are responsible for keeping Malfurion locked in the dream. And the worst part is that this is a repeatable quest for reputation, so Fandral had a ton of Morrograin to keep Malfurion asleep. In the Emerald Dream, Xavius captures Malfurion, and he tortures Malfurion by turning him into a tree, and showing him warped visions of Tyrande, becoming a demon and falling in love with Illidan.
Tyrande! No!
Malfurion! Hold on, my love!
But with help from his friends, Malfurion breaks free and uses all of his super cool druid powers to cleanse all of Azeroth and shove all the corruption in the Emerald Dream in a corner, and he saves the entire world and Ysera, who says that he's even stronger than her. Ysera being an ancient dragon personally blessed by a nature demigoddess, by the way. This book ends with Malfurion and Tyrande getting married, which makes it seem like Malfurion's decade-long slumber in the dream was caused by his fear of commitment more than anything else. Now it's the Cataclysm expansion, and finally, after 6 years, Malfurion makes his in-game debut. But when he's first added to the game, his character model looked like this. Now with Deathwing fully being unleashed, natural disasters erupt all around Azeroth, and Malfurion travels the Dark Shore to stop the zone from being wiped off the map. In the zone, there's a giant tornado that has a floating cow in it, and Malfurion is using all of his power to stop it from destroying the zone. Which, wow, sounds badass, right? But the reality is, it's one of the strangest liminal locations in all of World of Warcraft, because you can kind of just walk right into this giant tornado, and Malfurion is kind of just standing here, and he's been standing here now for 15 years at this point, so it's pretty anticlimactic if you ask me. Later on in the expansion, he's at Mount Hyjal and is helping fight against Ragnaros and Fandral Staghelm, who's gone fully crazy and started a faction called the Druids of the Flame, whose driving motivation is to regain their immortality and, set everything on fire. But with help from Malfurion, we kill Ragnaros and Fandral Staghelm.
By fire be purged.
You may destroy our home, but you will never destroy our hope. The fury of nature rises against you.
No! This was to be my hour of triumph.
In Warlords of Draenor, Malfurion shows up very briefly at the tail end of the expansion with a little lore detail that I think is pretty neat. In World of Warcraft, when you kill the last boss of an expansion on heroic difficulty or higher, you can get an achievement called Ahead of the Curve. You are also rewarded with a limited time mount. In order to obtain this mount, players had to follow a quest from an item on the corpse of Archimonde called the Remnant of Chaos. Players take this Remnant of Chaos to Malfurion in Moonglade, who discovers it holds an essence of power from the Emerald Nightmare.
I sense darkness in the dreamways.
Malfurion is disturbed by this revelation and leaves to go to Val'sharah to investigate further. And as we know, the next expansion, Legion, Val'sharah is one of the zones on the Broken Isles, so this quest served as a little teaser for what was going to come in the following expansion.
Ah, Val'sharah. Ages ago, the first Druids molded this land to be a reflection of the Emerald Dream. Every step in this forest brings back precious memories.
But not all is perfect in the land of the Druids. Malfurion's teacher, Cenarius, has been locked in a deep sleep and corrupted by the re-emerging Emerald Nightmare. In order to find a solution to his slumber, Malfurion and other druids summon the dragon aspect Ysera for aid.
Lady Ysera, thank you for answering our call. We face a dire threat.
No need to explain, Malfurion. I have seen what is coming. The Emerald Dream is being overtaken by the Nightmare. The Legion and the Satyr Xavius are to blame. The Nightmare Lord must be vanquished, or Val'sharah is lost.
Their insidious shadow seeps into our world, distracting us with whispers and doubts.
In order to save Cenarius, Ysera tells players to go retrieve an ancient Titan artifact called the Tears of Elune.
Foolish mortal! The Tears of Elune are mine now. If Malfurion wants them back so badly, he can seek me out. I'll be waiting.
The Tears of Elune stolen by Xavius?
Uh-huh.
No! There is no time! Xavius must be stopped!
Rage has blinded Malfurion. He and Xavius have a long history of conflict.
But everything seems to be falling apart as Malfurion is playing right into Xavius' trap. The Archdruid is then captured by Xavius, and when Ysera attempts to rescue him, she is corrupted by the Nightmare and is later killed by player characters. During the quest line in this zone, Xavius appears as a visage of Malfurion, and despite Malfurion not saying these voice lines, it has irreparably tarnished his character for the player base because of how just hilariously pathetic these voice lines are.
But what's this? Which Malfurion is real, and which is part of the Nightmare?
My love, I am here. Come to me. Where are you, Tyrande? I need you. Hurry. I cannot fight much longer. You cannot keep me from her. Tyrande!
Yes, I hear you. I am close now.
Later on, we rescue Malfurion from the shadow of Xavius in the Dark Heart Thicket dungeon. And the Archdruid kind of redeems himself by just being so incredibly sassy.
Those who challenge me only speed themselves to an agonizing death.
So says the shadow of Xavius. They will be more than prepared. For your true power rests in the nightmare.
Silence, weakling. A pity you have come this far only to die at the hands of Xavius.
An empty threat. You hold no sway over this realm, Nightmare Lord.
Now you're probably wondering, wait, I thought Malfurion was like the most powerful mortal in all of Azeroth. How is he getting his ass kicked by Xavius? If I had to guess, it's because a large swath of the Emerald Dream was corrupted by the Nightmare, which is nerfing Malfurion's power. But as far as I can tell, this lore is never confirmed, just assumed. But regardless, the avatar of Xavius is defeated and Malfurion is saved. But Xavius would not be truly defeated until the Emerald Nightmare raid. During the raid, we as players defeat Xavius' minions, and Malfurion confronts his corrupted teacher, Cenarius, who's been swayed by the Nightmare and thinks that Malfurion is the one that is actually corrupted.
Can it be? My old master is blind to the lies of Xavius and thinks we are the source of the infestation. You have been deceived, my teacher. Xavius has twisted your perceptions. I beg of you, let me cleanse you of this evil.
Liars! Servant of darkness! It will give me no pleasure to destroy you, but my duty is to the dream.
Master, we fight to save them.
Filth!
Xavius has twisted your perception.
Defiler!
I will not lose you.
Villains!
I've had enough of this. To my aid, friends.
Hold your weapons! He begins to see the truth.
Is that you, Theroshan? You fight with noble hearts. Could it be true? Could the darkness be inside of me?
It is done. Cenarius is beaten, but my great teacher lives. Now I must focus all of my strength to cleanse him. Xavius waits ahead in the Rift of Aln, the true heart of the Nightmare. Would that I could fight at your side, heroes, but to this place I cannot go.
So at the end of the raid, players travel into the heart of the Nightmare, the Rift of Aln, and defeat Xavius for the 4th time. And in the Midnight expansion, it's been revealed that the Rift of Aln is going to be a location in one of the new zones. So perhaps the Nightmare is going to return, and Xavius will come along with it. Now it's battle for Azeroth, and finally Malfurion is able to display his power. But much of Malfurion's involvement is not during the actual expansion. A lot of it is in the short story A Good War. This story absolutely kicks ass, but the unfortunate thing is that it seems like it flew under the radar of a lot of WoW fans. The short story also crosses over with the pre-patch for the expansion, and follows the events of the Horde invading Ashenvale. The assault was totally unexpected. Suddenly, the Horde had thousands of soldiers, siege weapons, and spellcasters pushing into Kaldorei lands. The Night Elves were outnumbered 8-1, but the Night Elves had something the Horde didn't: Malfurion's Stormrage. By his command, the forest itself became a deadly ally against the Horde. Trees bent and broke to block the paths of Horde troops, branches lashed out at his enemies, the ground shifted and broke, roots ensnared and crushed and buried Horde soldiers. By Elune, I bet even squirrels were nibbling at their ankles. At one point in the story, Malfurion is ambushed by an assassin, and he binds him with roots and crushes his throat. He then confronts High Overlord Varrock Sarfang and Astronar. Roots like serpents entomb the building, and in the warrior's desperation, he challenges the Archdruid to Mock Garah, a traditional orcish duel to the death. Malfurion responds with, "I don't give a fuck about your orcish bullshit. I'm gonna fucking kill you!" But Sylvanas intervenes and he's forced to retreat. The Night Elves are pushed back to Darkshore, and Malfurion conjures a giant laser death wall of wisps to block the Horde's advancement into the zone, and the Horde is then forced to make a route through Felwood instead. Now, despite Malfurion's power, the overwhelming force of the Horde taking over their land was inevitable. Right now, they were just buying time while they evacuated as many Night Elven citizens as possible. Sylvanas continued to pursue Malfurion.
Malfurion, how gracious of you to join us. Who would have guessed that you had come to protect your precious trees?
Be gone, witch.
No! My eyes! It burns. Where did you fly away to, little bird?
Later on, the two are locked in a 1v1 battle, with Malfurion gaining the upper hand. But High Overlord Saurfang disrespects the 1v1 and throws an axe into the back of Malfurion.
Finish him and be done with it. Take a moment if you like. Then take his head. Meet me at the World Tree.
Saurfang immediately gets all sad after throwing his axe at Malfurion because, oh, my honor, I'm so dishonorable. Oh, why did I do that? I'm so dishonorable and old.
Zug zug.
Tyrande rescues Malfurion and teleports away, and the war is lost. The Horde now occupy their lands and burn down Teldrassil. So despite Malfurion doing cool stuff, he ultimately gets his ass kicked. And during the battle for Azeroth proper, the Night Elves reclaim their lands, and Malfurion gets a cool fan service cinematic and plays a role in the warfront for the zone, but I wouldn't say it's anything particularly interesting story-wise. Shadowlands happens and Malfurion is nowhere to be seen. And in Dragonflight, oh, Byaloon. Okay, so in Shadowlands, Tyrande got a new seed to make a new world tree since their last one burnt down. She plants it in the Emerald Dream, and then bad guys take over the Emerald Dream and stop anyone from accessing the Dream from Azeroth. But to circumvent this, they can send Ysera to the Emerald Dream from Ardenweald by having Malfurion take her spot in the Realm of Death. This doesn't kill Malfurion, he just gets to hang out while Ysera gets a get-out-of-jail-free card for the rest of the expansion. Does that make any sense to you? It doesn't have to. Just know this is all just some elaborate, bizarre story decision for Malfurion to be left out of the last patch of Dragonflight. The Emerald Dream Patch! You know, the realm incredibly integral to Malfurion as a character, a place that has been mentioned in the lore since Warcraft 3 through Malfurion. The Archdruid being written out of this patch is so incredibly bizarre. I guess they didn't want this overpowered character in the story and wanted to focus on dragons in the Dragon expansion, but it's such an appalling way to manage his character. Dragonflight ends with the Night Elves getting a new world tree and Malfurion returns. They all hug and Malfurion and Tyrande retire, and Chandris Feathermoon is now the leader of the Night Elves. Chandris is a character from Warcraft 3, but perhaps her story can be saved for another time. Warcraft as a setting has been built up over the span of 30 years, and during that time, the universe has never experienced a hard reset in its lore. In comparison, other long-running universes have fine-tuned their extensive catalog of lore by either reinventing their entire universe or removing large swaths of lore. This is either done because of a change in priorities, writers, or avoiding writing themselves into a corner. In comparison, over the past 30 years, the retcons Warcraft has gone through aren't as drastic. Yes, there have been plenty of recontextualizations and additions, but they have never non-canonized a huge swath of their lore. Except the RPG books, but that doesn't count. And I think Malfurion is a prime example of the problematic consequences of a constantly growing universe for the past 30 years. Malfurion was first introduced as a character during Warcraft 3, a single-player game where the purpose of the Archdruid was to be a hero character for one of the game's main mechanics. Additionally, the first book of the War of the Ancients trilogy would be released. This book series is basically the Old Testament for the foundation of the Warcraft universe. Both Warcraft 3 and this book series wrote Malfurion as an incredibly overpowered character, near the upper limit to what a mortal could even achieve in the Warcraft universe. And while it fit well within the context of a book series and a single-player game, it would create issues for the ongoing narrative of World of Warcraft, and it was not written with the anticipation of this story continuing for several more decades. In the context of an MMO, an all-powerful character like Malfurion creates an issue. If Superman is on your side, it kind of ruins the agency and stakes for any other character or player characters. And for this reason, Malfurion was written out of the lore as to not create any issues, and or the writers simply just didn't know what the hell to do with him. He was absent until Cataclysm, played a role as the victim in Legion, admittedly allowed to do some cool shit in Battle for Azeroth, and then egregiously written out of the story in Dragonflight, and is now semi-retired for the foreseeable future. Additionally, it's important to point out that Malfurion was not the leader of the Night Elves. Tyrande was. An important characterization for the Kalderae is that they are a matriarchal society, and having Malfurion constantly being the most powerful night elf in the room diminishes Tyrande as a character and the core characterization for the Night Elves. But here's hoping that Malfurion returns back into the lore in some capacity like the rest of his Warcraft 3 compatriots. But you know, if worst comes to worst, they can just give him elemental dysfunction like they do with Thrall every other expansion. And remember, if you want more ridiculous Malfurion lore, you can listen to my narration of the War of the Ancients book filled with sound effects and music by becoming a channel member here on YouTube or join my Patreon.